And now I'm going to have Carol come back up and get our presentation started.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for coming over here today. This is a really special event for us. So good evening and welcome to Northern Michigan University. In partnership with the Lake Superior Community Partnership, we want to host this, and we're very pleased to host this Executive in Residence program. For those of you that aren't familiar with what an Executive in Residence is, it's a program where we try to enrich student learning and faculty development by introducing them to accomplished leaders in business. And so we've really put our Executive in Residence through the ringers. This program started in 1979, so it's over 40 years old, but we have our Executive in Residence attend a variety of different classes and provide an individual perspective based on their life experiences and their business experiences. And so they get the idea and they get the feeling of what it's like to actually talk to a group of students as we do as professors. And so students ask very interesting questions. And students are very interesting. And they're also very inquisitive because they want to know how a person made that particular journey. So this year's fall Executive in Residence, in my opinion, is truly exceptional and has been sharing his business strategies and leadership philosophy with a variety of our business classes, as I said. Classes from intro to business all the way through our capstone course, strategic management. In fact, I have to tell you something. I received a message from a retired NMU professor that knows John. And she wrote, he was my all-time favorite student, which was totally unsolicited. She wanted me to tell him, it was Marge Sklar, John. She's teaching a dance class. And she wants to send her congratulations. And she was she's very proud of you. That's quite a compliment. And she really wishes she could join us. So John Baltes, from 1986, was a grad of NMU. He brings 30 years of experience in leadership and business strategy. He has a very strong data systems background, a very successful gentleman. He hails from Madison, Wisconsin, but spends time in Gwynn, so he's close to us, at his summer home, which I found out the other day he built himself, which I was extremely impressed with, having learned many of his skilled trades from his father and his uncle. So he is indeed a very hard worker. On a professional level, Baltes is a retired CEO of SVA, which is a private company serving clients in tax and accounting services, business consulting services, wealth and investment management, and estate and trust services. Covers the gamut, I think. He's done so much professionally, and he's also been very cognizant of the community and given back by serving on a variety of different boards. And I'm not going to talk anymore because I think it's more important to hear what John has to say. But I do have to do one thing because he is retired. And John knows this about me. I have a lot of bad habits, and we share one of the same. So, as a special thank you for being our Executive in Residence, I'm hoping he's able to get out and golf more, because everybody knows that's what I want to do. We have a gap wedge for him. I hope you don't have one.
Very kind.
Okay.
Very kind.
Thank you.
Now I need a lesson. Probably more important than the wedge is the lesson to go with it and how you use it. Thank you, Carol. Well, let me start with, Carol, Mike, and others. So last spring, I came up here and I was visiting Carol in her office, and she asked if I would do this, and I was pretty hesitant, I'll be honest with you. Mike can attest to that, and simply because I'm a pretty private person and don't do a lot of this, but said, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. So what happened next was I got a tentative itinerary of what I was going to do, and I saw all the classes they wanted me to go on the hour for 3 days to all these different classes, and then there was also a tentative section about this event. I looked at it back in June, thought nothing of it. September rolls around, a couple weeks, I pick up the tentative agenda, I send a message to Carol and go, what's this about, the highlighted thing, which is this? I go, and she goes, well, yeah, and you're going to speak at it. I go, oh, okay. What do you think people want to hear? And she goes, I don't know, it's your choice. So It was my choice to pick a topic to come talk to you all. I pondered that for a couple days. I thought about the big four we all see in the media and all the negativity around them, and I quickly excluded those and thought we'd take this whole conversation a very different direction, and hopefully a very positive direction. So what I've come tonight to talk about is an opinion I've carried for about the last year or a little bit more about what's going on around different generations and the opportunities available to them. And I'm also equipped myself with some evidence on why I have that opinion. And my hope in coming and talking tonight is that I get a reaction from you. I get a dialogue from you. Earlier, like I had with Bill and Dave, or Dan and Bill in the other room, a dialogue around what I believe is going on out there and the opportunities that are for people. So that's what I'm prepared to talk about. I hope there's only like 50 of us in here. I hope it is very open and active conversation. So this is my opinion. It's only one opinion, and I'm not here to convince you of anything. Actually, I would like to know if you share the opinion or if your opinion differs or you want to comment on it. But this thought that I've had over the last year, just watching things go on as I've kind of moved into retirement, is I believe there's more opportunity for young business leaders and entrepreneurs in the coming decades than I ever had in my career. And this is what I presented to the students today. They asked me questions, but I went in and out of 7 classrooms today, and this is what I talked to them about. Because I wanted to get them up, their eyes open to what the opportunity is, because they're all experiencing a lot of negativity in the world today. And I don't think it's negative. They need to understand what's going on. So why is it important we have this conversation? Because as I said, I don't think they recognize the opportunity, because no one's ever give a broader perspective of what's going on. They see current events, what happens. They see these time slices constantly. They don't see the big picture. So trying to present the big picture to them. What actually is going on in our society? Why do they have more opportunity to have very fulfilling careers that are, they can build wealth. They can control their own destiny. There's all sorts of things they have that we didn't have. When I came out of college, it was an interesting time because lots of things were going on in our society, like lots of offshoring. Lots of jobs were leaving our communities. Lots of jobs and those things were happening. We have a totally different trend going on today, and I just wanted to get them up and eyes open. In order to do that, I wanted to present them with an opinion. It's only one opinion. I'm willing to change it if you guys can convince me, so I'm not here to convince you of anything. Would like your input. But get them up and positive. The second thing is to really take people like us, mostly what I see in this room, and I'll do a little poll here in a second, people like us, and say, how can we help the situation? And let's start helping these people. So a little audience poll. How many are baby boomers? 40. Well, there's probably 30% of us, I would think. How many of you are Generation X? You youngins. Yeah, probably like 15%. Millennials, are there any millennials? There we go. We got some millennials in here, which is good. Is there anyone Generation Z? There he is. Oh, there's 2 or 3. All right, very good. That's important because these generational categories have very distinct qualities, very distinct things that they do and go through them. How many are still in college? There you go. Don's still in college back there. How many are in the last quarter of their career? A typical career, about 40 years, so you're in the last 10 years. There you go, right. And the first quarter of your career. How many are just entering the first quarter of your career where you're going to go out and build a career and you're going to be in the work world for 3? We have a couple of you in this room, which is important. These are important because these shape your opinions of what's going on, because what you've seen and what you've experienced is shaping what you believe your opportunity is and what you need to do. So what I thought I would do is go through some evidence with you on why I have this opinion that there's more opportunity today than there's ever been. And it's categorized. One of the first notable things that's happening in our society today is this whole pandemic. The crisis management, the aftermath of what came out of the pandemic. That's one thing that's very much influencing this new opportunity people have. The second thing is really baby boomer retirements. People aren't, in my opinion, paying attention enough to what's going on out there in the world in terms of business and the opportunity in business based on the demographics of this group. It's a very interesting group. The third thing that I think is going on out there is consumerism. And I see the gap between supply and demand widening and not narrowing, where we can't get goods that we want. It's a problem. No, every problem is an opportunity for someone. If they're motivated, inspired, whatnot, it is an opportunity for them. And then the looming recession, you can argue whether we went through a recession early 2020, don't care to argue, but when you get into a recession, the best part of a recession is the recovery. They last for different lengths of time, but the thing is there's a natural uplift to business when you start going into a growth mode coming out of a recession. So as a business person, a small business person, what I saw is that any recession I went through in my life really culled the weak. Maybe some of the organizations that didn't have the strong balance sheets, didn't have the right business practices, it kind of did a culling or leveling of the field, and then the rest of the people could get stronger. That's kind of what happened. So these are the general categories I thought I would give you evidence in what I see, but I want to hear from you and get a reaction from you. If you see the same stuff, you go, nah, John, that's a bunch of bunk. That's not what it is. I want to hear that as well. We good with that? I do need to tell you my perspective from a disclaimer standpoint is that I did work in big business. I worked for 4 years for Arthur Andersen Consulting, which is now known as Accenture, and then I left that to go back into small business and worked and ran small businesses, was the founder of some of those. Small business being, according to the SBA, any company under 500 employees. That's considered small business. 99.9% of the business in the United States are small businesses. So I'm not alone. A lot of us work for small businesses, and they justify or represent about 45 to 40% of the economic transactions. So roughly half if you want to. Okay, so that's the definition of small business. That's my background. My perspective is management over small business. It's not mega corporations. That's not the world I played in, so you know the formation of my opinions. You all good with that? Okay, so let's talk about notable outcomes from the pandemic. These notable outcomes need leadership to overcome. So the first notable outcome of the pandemic is people really started to look at their work-life balance and question what they were doing and where they should spend their time. Every generation went through this. Our generation, right down to the Z's. Everyone who was out there said, what should I be doing? What do I enjoy? I don't want to miss out on things. So we have this whole reprioritization going on with this work-life balance. That's what happened immediately out of the pandemic. It still exists today. I was talking to Dan and Bill earlier, and they said the problem they're having is getting people into the job market, right? How are we going to, and what leadership is going to draw people back into the job market? How are we going to motivate people to come back? They have to come back. We need them back. This is going to take some real brain power. It's a big problem, big opportunity. Who figures this out is going to be very prosperous. This is one we need to figure out. So it's not a problem that can't be overcome. It's one that's daunting, and it's one that probably takes brain power from multiple generations. Some of these younger generations are used to the older generation solving the problems and telling them what the answer is going to be and putting things in place. This is one of these that we're going to need all generations putting their heads together to figure out how to get people back into the job market. It's an opportunity for leadership. What happened during the pandemic is that morphed. That absolutely morphed into, if you look at what's the number one thing, and this is according to survey on LinkedIn, what's the number one thing that job applicants are looking for as they move to a new position? You guys know? And it's rising. What's the number one thing? Work at home is part of it, Phil. Anyone else?
How about daycare?
Daycare, yeah. Management. What they're actually looking for is they're looking for flexible work arrangements. They're looking for this idea that I can flex and do different things. Flexible work arrangement is the number one thing, and it's growing rapidly. It's outpacing compensation in terms of growth and what people are looking for. They want to be in control of their own destination. We need to really pay attention. It's going to take some leadership to get around this issue, and here's why, in my opinion. These are all my opinion. When I was hiring people and doing different things with our staff and creating benefit packages and all this other stuff, I was dealing with a lot of regulation and abiding by regulation, those kinds of things. Creativity in this area is very difficult because it's governed through regulation. So if we said, I want to have someone work in 3 different companies all at one time, but we're going to offer them a benefit package, tell me how that's going to be done. How is that going to be done? Things like recomposition of people's roles, the tasks they do, when they do them. There's a whole new level of definition that needs to go into what a job is or what a profession is or who employs them. And when you get to there's a lot of regulation, a lot of legal things they're going to have to start working around that are just daunting today. I think they can get there, but until they do that, I don't think we're going to be successful. Young leadership, this is an opportunity. What do you guys think of that? You guys see the same thing? Yeah, I mean, I had employed contractors, and I had the government come to me and say, they're not really contractors, they spend too much time with you. They spend more than 50%, so they're actually an employee. You need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. They wanted to be an independent. That was their choice, not mine. I happened to hire them to do work for us. And they started interfering with my business, right? HR comes to me and says, well, we have this class of people. They all need to be treated equally. Well, but we get this out of this person, that out of person, even though we have the same title. You know, we go through all these legal and regulations, things to get around. It's an opportunity, one that we're going to have to solve. The third thing that came out of the pandemic is we got a real insight into our vulnerability in the supply chain. Some real insight into it, and we're still getting it. So this is an opportunity for leadership and aspiring leaders, young leaders specifically, in that we're doing something about it now. We are re-onshoring. And I think you guys are watching. If you're not seeing it, pay attention. We are re-onshoring, trying to get rid of the vulnerabilities that we have within our supply chain. Remember the PPE? We couldn't get PPE, right? What happens? We have people start making PPE. I show the picture of this warehouse here. I mean, I'm getting actively, because we deal with some real estate people building warehouse and manufacturing plants all over, looking for private equity, looking for different things. We are re-onshoring. The management consulting group that I ran and turned over to my business partner who now runs it, they are domesticating pharmaceuticals. Foreign companies need now to bring their pharmaceuticals to the United States. They are working to commercialize in the United States and how they actually get done that. That's what that consulting group is doing now. So we have this huge opportunity for all these young people. When we bring this business back here, supply chain back, we need leaders to run these organizations. We need leaders to manage these organizations. It is a huge opportunity for them simply because we experienced this crisis and now we realize that we can't have this any longer. When I talk to the kids, I also talk to them about the secondary and tertiary suppliers. There's a whole new awareness amongst people that I need my secondary and tertiary suppliers, which oftentimes are smaller organizations that can back them up, that can back up that primary. I had an interesting thing happen when the pandemic hit. I was on a CEO roundtable call because we were on calls, so we were on the call, and there was an air filtration company in Wisconsin, and the CEO, actually the CFO, was on there, and he was talking about how their business is booming, faster growth than they've ever had. And people were like, oh, wait, we can't have people at work, we can't do this, we can't do that. He goes, no, we've agreed to, we clean the manufacturing floor 4 times a day, everyone's masked, everyone's in these suits and everything. He said, right now we are booming. They said, where are you getting your inventory to actually make this air filtration stuff? And where it was going was they were building these temporary hospitals. They needed to have the same surgical type air filtration that you have in a hospital, so they're building the equipment. He said, not only are we building it, we figured out how to build it in a quarter of the time we used to build it in. That's what innovation is. All this crisis created this innovation. And he said about 6-7 years ago, we did a whole thing on, we needed to make sure that we had secondary and tertiary suppliers for all of our parts. So we immediately, when our primaries ran out, started hitting these other guys. And they kept us supplied with product so we could continue to do what we needed to do. It was a really interesting story, and I'm sitting there going, well, these guys, thank God they planned ahead because they were supplying some critical things for all of us. The last thing that came out of the pandemic was this incredible empathy towards organizations, service organizations, restaurants, that kind of stuff from consumers. So, I'm short-staffed, only certain tables are open, we only have certain hours, we only have this, we only have that. So that came out of here. What I would contend at this point is I think that the empathy is starting to wane, and it's going to go away. There's a point in time that will go away, and it's going to go back to quality of service, and people are going to have to figure out what they're good at in terms of services and whatnot, because consumers aren't going to tolerate it forever. We've been very empathetic to businesses trying to get their product out, trying to service all. That is going away, in my opinion. You guys might differ in your opinion. We all good? So, notable outcomes of the pandemic are one reason. It's creating all this opportunity for young leadership. They need to solve these problems. They have the opportunity to solve these problems. We'll help them, but it's up to them. The second reason I believe there's more opportunity for these young generation is simply the demographics of what's going on, which is really the baby boomer retirement. You know, you read about this thing, the Great Resignation going on right after this pandemic. And truly there wasn't a great resignation, so everyone knows that. If you truly look at the data, between 2009 and 2019, there was about 0.01% growth in retirements every month over 10 years. And it was really the baby boomers leaving the workforce. The people that were early on the baby boomer generation, they're starting to leave. So it wasn't a great resignation. What actually happened in 2020 with all the uncertainty of COVID, people stopped. They stopped retiring because they didn't know if they could anymore. So we stopped. That was only short-lived once they hit all the markets with the monies and everything, and then all of a sudden it jumped back up. So there truly wasn't a great resignation. It's truly a longer effect that's been going on for a long time. Does that make sense to you all? This is creating opportunity, incredible opportunity, because a lot of these people leaving these jobs are leaders. They're running the organizations. They're leading areas of the organization. They need to be backfilled. They need to train the people who are going to do that. That's this younger generation. They need to get up and get trained. We need to help them. It's an interesting statistic, and it was out in Forbes, is that 10,000 baby boomers retire a day. I was like, wow, that's an interesting number, that 10,000 retire a day. What's even more interesting about that number, for anyone who's got any entrepreneurial spirit, 19% are business owners. Think of the businesses out there that are available to be transitioned. It's unbelievable. Nothing that we had when I came out, unless I had my head in the sand. I did not see any of this stuff. There are so many businesses that are out there and available. So I wanted to put this into a local perspective for people. 538, so let's say 81,000 businesses have, in the state of Michigan right now, have owners that are age 55 and older. 81,000. Of those, they employ 1 million people, have a payroll of $41 billion, and do $204 billion in business. These people are going to retire in the next 10, 15 years. Someone's got to lead these. Is there economic opportunity here? Oh my gosh, guys. It's crazy how much opportunity there is. So really the second thing is that it's not really an effect of, it was confused being around the effect of the COVID and being the Great Resignation when it's been going on for a long time. And the baby boomers retirement is offering leadership openings, it's offering economic openings in terms of buying businesses, and in terms of taking on roles. It's part of the challenge. So what Rich is referring to is that the younger generation is looking at, and they're questioning their commitment to put in the amount of effort and time that the original business owner put into it. Correct? And I agree with you. I agree that's going on. And I had this question come up in the classroom. People said, how many hours did you work? Which, being in a professional service, I knew the answer because we track time very, very carefully, you know. But I said, here's the difference. I'm going to go back to the survey of LinkedIn. What do you want in your career? According to survey, you guys want flexible work arrangements. I can tell you as an owner in the business, I had all the flexibility in the world. And I gave them a story of how I left big corporation and how I went back into small business. And the actual moment that happened to me, which was on a hunting trip, but that's not here nor there, but why I made that decision. I said, as a business owner, I had all the flexibility. I was in full control. I worked those hours because I wanted to. I was excited to get up and go build something. It was exciting. It was motivating. It was because I wanted to do it. That's what you guys are missing. You're confused with the excitement around building a business with the need to put hours into it and put effort into it. It's very confusing to you. But you're dead on, Rich. I agree with you. It's one of their main concerns. How much time am I going to have to put in this thing? And it's not time, it's the ability to control when you do it is what's critical. Yeah. It is, and they like you talked to me earlier, a lot of people, they get the headline, but they don't really investigate reasoning and all those other things. I dealt with, because I was a management consultant, I literally automated hundreds and hundreds of companies, put automation for it. To automate a company, you have to understand the company as well as anyone to get the automation to work, right? what I always found interesting is that we look at if you had secondary generation companies led, or third, or fourth, and very few ever make it to fourth, but if you had third, second generation is a great company to own because typically you have all the assets paid off. You don't have all the liabilities. You don't have all the work ethic, the sweat equity that needs to go into building those things. So a second generation, so when I talk to the students, I try to equate that. They go, well, I want to start a company. I'd like to be an entrepreneur. I said, so you're going to start with zero revenue dollars versus finding a company that kind of looks like what you want to do and buying a revenue stream. They go, well, how will we get money to buy it? Well, seller financing. And there's plenty of other money out there to be had, okay? So you're trying to educate them on the opportunity. But it's a great point, great point. The third category that I talked to them about is that, and there's so much opportunity out there, and you and I, we all see it, is consumerism. As baby boomers, we're the first generation that ever saved for our own retirement. Most of that before was done pension or people didn't retire. So we saved for our own retirements and we suffered and we compromised, we did all that stuff. We're at a point now that we want to go have fun, treat ourselves well, buy nice things, experience things. We control 50% of the wealth in the United States and we control 70% of the disposable income. They need to figure out how to service us. There's a huge, huge opportunity here for anyone that economically knows what's going on. You combine that with the next two generations, they're used to having very nice things. They like very nice things, they like brand name things, they're used to treating themselves very well, taking annual trips. They're so in tune of having nice things, they're willing to take on debt to do it, that we weren't willing to take on as baby boomers. So the next generation, it's not being critical, it's just a different perspective of the world. You take these two, put them together, I don't think demand for products and services is going to go down. I would actually contend it's going to go up. It's going to go up, okay? The ability to supply us and meet those needs, the gap to me right now is widening. I'm watching the thing widen. I go, when this thing widens, and if you're a young person, you go, if I can get in the middle of that thing and do something to meet those customer demands, I could have a very, very fruitful occupation, life, career, whatever that needs to be. We're seeing it in the car lot, you're seeing the out of stock, you're seeing all the other stuff. How many times in your career have you turned away clients? It's not often, but you have to, right? And that's what's going on. We see it all over the place, so we're going to have to figure out the supply side. For young people, it reeks of opportunity, just reeks of opportunity. So that's the third category, is consumerism. I think there's a growing divide between demand and supply. The last thing is really, the recession, or going into any kind of recession period, which we've kind of gone into a recession. Like I said, we can argue whether we haven't or haven't. Don't care to do that, but I want to talk to you about from a business perspective. Anytime we go into recession conditions like this, the reality is we cull the weak. The organizations that maybe had questionable business practices, all those other things, they get culled. That's traditionally what happens. So you're starting to level the playing field, where you don't have a bunch of noise out in the marketplace amongst competitors that are very short-lived. So that's what happens. The second thing that happens right after this, and this is well known, is innovation. If you guys would have told me 15 years ago that I'd be riding in a stranger's car, paying them to take me from one place to another, I would have told you you're nuts. If you would have told me I would have let a stranger touch my food and bring it from the restaurant to my house, I would have told you you were nuts. When you go through a recession and people need to be employed, we start to innovate. And those are just two small examples of innovation that goes on. There's lots of innovation that will go on here as we start to recover from this next recession we go into. And these young people are on the front side of that. That might go on for 10 decades like it did after 2009. It might go on for different lengths of period of time. But they're going to get into a recovery, and every boat's going to rise. We're going to fix the supply chain problem with multiple suppliers like I talked about. And we are bringing back on shore. Like it, don't like it, I don't care. The reality is we're bringing back on shore a lot of this supply chain, and that just creates opportunity. Construction opportunity, running these places, transportation opportunity, all sorts of opportunity by going back through this process. There is access to capital. There's absolute access to capital. I was in the capital markets class, and Derek was teaching it. And they were talking about the central bank and the central bank raising the rates and how that's going to discourage people from money. I said, no, what that just did is made private equity more attractive. And there's a lot of private equity out there. You don't have to go to a bank to get money today. that's one place you can go, but it's not. I apologize to any bankers here, but that's the truth of the situation, is a lot of people are out there. And frankly, there's a lot of baby boomers out there saying, I'm looking for a place to put this money where it will actually make me a guaranteed return versus putting it in the market. That's just the way the world's working. So the capital's available. Capital being available assists in the quickness of how we recover. So what I would see is that if the baby boomers have the money, they're going to be putting it to work on behalf of other people, whether that's seller financing of a business, whether that's investing in some of these capital organizations. The last thing that's happening is that we have this great migration going on. We all thought it was great to work remote and the ability to work remote. Now we're seeing this, and there's many articles published on this on states that are losing people, urban areas that are losing people, coming into rural areas, that kind of stuff. We're getting people coming in. There's another big crisis going on, though, which is what? Housing. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. Housing's going on. What an opportunity if you're a housing builder, huh? We see, like where I'm in the Madison area, Julie and I are in the Madison area, we see apartment buildings going up. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There's 2 or 3 dozen going up in different areas. It's unbelievable how many apartments are going up for living for people. The housing market is just absolutely nuts in terms. Think of the opportunity for all these young people. They don't have to go out and create demand. They don't have to go out and create a business model. They just have to respond. They just have to be there and respond to all the demand that's there. So it's really those 4 things. When I tell people that I'm of the opinion that there's more opportunity for young people today than we ever had, and I want to get them positive and up, is to give them evidence that this is actually what's going on all around them. They just have to understand and realize that and quit looking at these snippets of time like the nightly news or whatever and start looking over a longer period of time what actually is coming at them. So that's what I had talked to the classes about and thought I would present to you guys tonight. This is very light, and I'll end with this. This is very light, but it's something I also talked to them about. It's just a light call to action. What can we all do? So there's all this opportunity out there. What should we consider doing? There's not many of you in here that are on that. I'm in college starting my career, and there's a few of you in the first quarter of your career. So a lot of my comments kind of go to that, and again, they're my opinions. The first thing is, I call this the judo flip, and this was taught me by a guy named Michael Taylor who runs Shelling Point, is that you see a problem. No, you have to turn that in your brain immediately to an opportunity. Your brain will actually shut down. You cannot problem solve looking at a problem in a negative realm. You need to flip it over and make it a positive problem, and then your brain will be able to solve it. So you turn it from a 2-step process into a 3-step process. So the first thing we need to do, and I told the kids, start practicing. You see a problem, don't say, that's a problem, and here's the problem. Say, you know what, I see that. I think it should be this way. In order to be that way, I need this. So they start practicing in their mind, turning things into a positive and opportunities. The second thing I advise, and I advise anyone, is write a plan. Write down a plan. What is your plan, your career plan? What do you want to do? I want to own a business someday. I want to do this someday. Write it down. I told them I used to get like intern groups coming in, or I would, 10, 12 kids would come in, or I would get 10, 12 new starts coming in, whatever they were. Inevitably, someone would ask me, so what do you guys offer in terms of career assistance? I told them, the unfortunate reality is the world's not fair, so whatever we do offer, it's not to everyone. We want to know what you want, how we can assist you. We'll work with you. We'll use our resources to assist you. My message to them is create a plan for yourself. Don't think that company is going to just print the yellow brick road and take you up up to the leadership ranks. That's not the way life works. So I try to give them a sense of reality, and everyone should have a plan. I told them to evaluate their daily practices. What are their daily practices? Do they work on their career every day? Or do they just kill time? They find ways to kill time. A lot of people will find ways to kill time because they really don't want to work on their career. So how much time are they spending educating themselves in all the other things in the world, all the other opportunities, versus just killing time? So finding a way to entertain themselves. I asked them, I said, anyone watch Shark Tank? Oh yeah, we all watch Shark Tank. Yeah, so do I. We all watch Shark Tank. And the reason we watch Shark Tank is to get an idea what other people are thinking. And what I try to tell them, and I tell everyone this, is that quit looking for the best idea. You waste so much time looking for the best idea. Find a good idea and start executing on it. You learn more through experiential, than you would ever learn by just thinking about it. So go start something. It might fail. That's okay. It's okay. That happens. I readily can come up with all the number of failures I had in business. Quit looking for it, because I say to people, I'm just trying to think of the next best thing. Come on, get busy doing something. The last thing that I talk about is networking, but networking for a different reason. And I think you guys hopefully will agree with this, is that people think today networking is getting on LinkedIn and pushing a button and saying, will you link into me? So they get access to who you are, what you do, and in some cases they're looking for power, those kinds of things. No, networking really goes to a different level. And I tell them, you want to check your network? Pull out a piece of paper and tell me the people in your network that you don't work with in your immediate company that you can talk to who will openly give you private information, and you will openly give them private information. That's your network. More business decisions and more business things are based on private information and access to private information than any other. People get confused and go, I got 1,000 people in my network. Really? I can tell you I'm not a great networker. I might have half a dozen that I'm willing to share information with them that is not public, and they're willing to share with me, but it's not huge. And I think people need to build, and I'm consulting with people, start building a network, a real network, that's actually what happens. I happen to have the advantage, like people in public service do, in that I was a management consultant, so I got to deal with business owners all day. And so I naturally could build a network. We got to know each other. We got to problem solve every day. We built trust every day. So I didn't have to come to a lot of events like this because I spent my day in their offices with them. Does that make sense to you? And we would share private information. And we made a lot of business decisions based on private information, not public information, which is old by the time you get it. So very light call to action. It's all kind of at a personal level. I think, we as an older those in here who are an older generation, I say we because that's including me, I want nothing more than these people to succeed because I want the products and services because I plan on spoiling myself and Julie in my retirement. That's the plan. We need to be able to do that. We all want a strong economy, right? We want our money growing and moving and doing stuff. We need, as the older generations, to assist these people in becoming successful. As young people, you have an unbelievable opportunity if you really want to have a fulfilling career, and build some wealth. So that was it. What do you guys think of my opinion? You guys agree? Yeah. One thing, Rich, that I discovered today as I was asking questions in the class and whatnot is one of their fears is, what about the generations ahead of us? We're just going to be in line. So I present this to them. We're just going to be in line. Those people, they went with the company for 15 years, and we're just going to be in line behind them. They're the next leaders. So how do we become leaders until they retire? I said, you're absolutely thinking about this incorrectly. If you're a professional and you want to move into a leadership ranks, what you should be doing as a night job and a weekend job is getting trained in leadership, all the topics around leadership. You need to enhance your skill set. Time, and I say this is that, and I told them this as well. I'll go into a company and consult, and they go, I've been with the company for 10 years and this whole thing. Well, they've had 2 roles in 10 years within the same company. I tell them they had 2 1-years repeated 5 times. They had 2 1-year experiences repeated 5 times. They did not continue to learn because that's truly what happened. Longevity in a company does not mean you're next to go into leadership. What means you're next to go into leadership is those who got trained and they understand what leadership's about. They have EQ, they have some other things. These young people, they can go build themselves an occupation, but then they need, if they want to move into leadership, start training themselves on all the topics around leadership, how to motivate people, how to solve some of these problems. Start solving these problems. That's leadership. It's not showing up. Does that make sense? Yeah, it was really, because they were kind of, but the Generation X and Millennial, they're all ahead of us. No, they're not. Oh, no, they're not. Other questions? Comments? Well, I appreciate it. If you do disagree with me, like I said, I'm okay with that. If you do agree with me, I think we all need to help out. We all need to help this next generation get on their feet. So that's my presentation.